Greetings of peace and love, everybody. You're not tuned in to 13 Sounds Astrology YouTube channel. My name is Ram Hotep, and I'm going to be your MC, I guess you could say. So I want to greet you all in the greeting words of peace. I'm doing this particular video today on finding oneself. It's going to be on that particular topic. I had one of my subscribers a while back. He's about 17 years old, I believe, asked me a question about how does one go about finding oneself. And I've been wanting to answer this question. I try to answer as many questions as I can through these videos. A lot of times it gets really hectic and gets really busy when you're doing this light working, but definitely wanted to answer the brother's question. Now, when you talk about finding yourself, you first have to define yourself. Now, you have, according to metaphysics and according to how I teach, you have two selves. Essentially, you have what's called, or two primary selves. Higher self, and then you have what's called the... Now, the higher self can be divided up into different levels of selves, usually three, and the lower self can be divided up into different levels of selves, usually three. Now, first, to find oneself, you first have to discover who you are, and in discovering who you are, this is going to unfold in different ages. So when you're 7 years old, you're going to be one way, but when you're 17 years old, you're going to be another way, and when you're 27 years old, you're going to be another way. And in each of those levels, you have to find yourself. So the way that you unfold as a being, you unfold every 7 years. I talked about this before in a video called Coming of Age and Initiation. For those people that are interested, you can watch that video. But you come into yourself every 7 years. And the first 7 years of your life is basically develops who you are, the foundation of who you are. That's the first 7 years of your life. So if you're 17 years old and you're talking about finding yourself, what you're trying to do is you're trying to find yourself from the perspective of where you're at right now. So if you're 17 years old, you're probably just now about to get out of high school. If you're in high school, I don't really know your situation, but when you start talking about finding yourself on that level, when you're 17 years old, you're on what's called your third chakra years. These are your third chakra years, and this is when you begin to develop your will, your strength, your endurance, your ego, who you are, your personality, how you're going to represent yourself to the world. So when you start talking about finding yourself at the age of 17 years old, this is a very significant age, beloved, because this is the years when you build up your ego, or how you're going to be represented to the world, or your overall image to the world. And what you have to understand is that if you're not working on yourself on a spiritual level, what I mean by that is if you're not tapping into yourself and asking yourself on each level, am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing on this level? Like, did I surpass this level, or did I pass this level? And if you haven't graduated past different levels, say for instance before you turn 17 or 27, if you haven't graduated from the years before that, if you haven't graduated from, say for instance, your sacral chakra years or your second chakra years, which came before you were 17, if you haven't mastered those experiences, then that's going to carry over into your new experience, or your new cycle. So you go through new cycles every 7 years. Every 7 years you become a new being, supposedly. But what happens is that if you don't master some of the energies from that old cycle, it gets carried over into the new cycle. And this is what we call burden and baggage, and being weighed down. So what happens is that you have to make sure, if you want to find yourself, you have to first go back within yourself and correct all of those things that happened to you before the age that you are now, so that you can make sure, was your will properly developed? Did you get a proper foundation for yourself? Were you taught about sexuality properly? You know what I'm saying? Do you know about your sexuality? Because when you start talking about finding yourself, like I said, it's on different levels. I mean, if you're 50 years old, finding yourself is different than if you're 14 years old. If you're 14 years old, finding yourself is dealing with your sexuality, believe it or not. It has a lot to do with your sexuality. And I know they don't teach that in Western society, because they're like, you're not grown until you're 18 years old, but they have it all backwards, because after 13 years old, this is when you go into your sexuality years. This is when you really become a man or woman according to the ancients. This is why the rites of passage took place after the age of 13. And like I was telling some of my students, even in the natal chart, after the age of 13 or 14, this is when you begin to develop your overall character, as far as your work, what you're going to do as far as to make a living for yourself and to earn for yourself. This, when you would have done that around the age of 13 or 14 if you were in the ancient times. But see, in this society, you're still in school at the age of 13, and you're still in school and you're still up under your parents, but really in your mind you're grown. So this is why a lot of teenagers, they begin to argue with their parents and they get into it and they're like, I'm ready to go out on my own. I don't need you. And then really in reality, if we were teaching our children correctly, they wouldn't need us. They wouldn't need us at that age or whatever. So finding yourself is based on where you're at now. Now, another level to it is once you go into yourself, you have to make sure that any blockages that you have are corrected and healed. And the blockages, the energy has to be free. So if you went through things in your childhood of stability, you moved around a lot, and you don't have grounding, that means you're not going to have good grounding right now. That means because your root chakra is damaged. It needs repairing. So you need to repair your root chakra. And you need to get grounding. So you need to do things that will ground you, partake in activities that will ground you. You can work with stones that will ground you. You can do yoga that grounds you, but you have to do a lot of earthly things to become grounded. You have to work the earth, like going for walks every day. You have to do something that's going to ground you here in the matrix, something physical, when you have root chakra issues, because the root chakra resonates mostly with the earth element, which deals with grounding. Now, when you get into your sacral chakra issues, those particular people are having issues with sexuality, no matter what age you are. And this started when you were a teenager, no matter what, because actually it started when you were between the age of 7 years old all the way up until you were about 14 or 15. This is when your sacral chakra was developing. And those people that have issues with that, or have issues of finding themselves in that department, this is when you see a lot of people that are confused about their sexuality, or they're just confused. Now, I'm not against same sexuality, so I don't want people to think I'm taking a shot at saying that people that are in same sexuality marriages are confused. No, I'm not saying that, because you're only confused if you don't know as to whether or not which sex you don't know what you want to do. You don't know if you like both sexes, or sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. You can't really make up your mind. That's dealing with confusion. You know what I'm saying? So as far as sexuality is concerned, now there's different types of confusion, but that's a confusion with sexuality. So to repair that, you would have to go into your sacral chakra, which is ruled by the water, and begin to work with the water element and heal yourself and repair that. So this is how you find yourself, by going within yourself to figure out what's going wrong. Because a lot of times when people feel like they can't find themselves, it's because they feel lost. They feel detached from everyday reality, and they're like, I gotta go find myself. So a lot of times people go move to a whole nother place to find themselves. Now sometimes that's important when you start talking about finding yourself. You might have to relocate to find yourself, because some people they have to go to a certain location to get the rest of their karma. You know what I'm saying? Like where you're at, you might not be able to fulfill your life script and to relieve yourself or to fulfill your karma in the place that you're at. So you might have to go to a different location. You might have to move somewhere. So a lot of times people say, man, I want to go move to Bermuda to find myself. Or I want to go move to Africa to find myself. Or I want to go move to Spain to find myself, or Paris to find myself. It's because of the fact that you don't have, you really, it's something you need to get from that place, because you had a past life in that place. And until you get what you need to get from there, you're never going to be fulfilled. Even if you don't fulfill it in this life, you'll come back just to probably want to go and experience life in the matrix in that place. So sometimes going and moving somewhere helps you to find yourself. If you're spiritual, you know that's what you need. But sometimes people move to go find themselves, and they just move to a place. They don't know if that's the place that they were supposed to go to find themselves. So that's why when you start talking about finding yourself, first you have to go within yourself. Don't look on the outside of yourself to find yourself. Some people say, I want to find myself in a mate. I want to find myself in a soulmate. You can't do that. If you don't know yourself, then you're not going to be able to find yourself in a mate. Well, you'll find yourself, but you'll probably find the darkest. Let me take that back. Excuse me. You'll find yourself, but you'll find the darkest part of yourself. You know what I'm saying? You won't find the highest part of yourself, what you really are looking for. You know what I'm saying? You'll find a dark aspect that you don't like. And that's why a lot of times people they attract relationships, and then they hate that person, and then they start to question that person, but really you got to question yourself. Why did you attract that person? What was it about that person? Something in you should have repelled that person if they had such darkness in them. Or, you know what I'm saying? Or such lack of compassion in them. So finding yourself is key. A lot of times in finding yourself, you'll attract situations to you that don't seem so pleasant, just to help you to find yourself. Unpleasant situations even. Sometimes people find themselves in jail. Some people find themselves hurt in a hospital somewhere. Sometimes people find themselves homeless. There's different ways that people find themselves. You know what I'm saying? So where you find yourself at right now is where you are supposed to be solving your problems at right now. It was taught that to me by wise master and sage that where man finds himself at right now is where he can solve his or her problems best. So where man or woman finds his or herself, that's where you can solve your problems at best. So wherever you're at now, that's where you're supposed to be, because that's where you're supposed to be working out your karma at that particular level. Same thing, like even in a dream state, you're even working out karma in a dream state. So what you dream about, it happened for a reason. No matter how dark it is, no matter how sinister it is, everything in existence and in reality happens for a reason, and it's all to help you to find yourself. So really, we incarnate, and it was a good question that the brother asked, because we incarnate here in this matrix to find ourselves. That's the whole point of it. And you have to make a distinction, beloveds, between the higher self and the lower self. You have the higher self, which is virtuous, harmonious, is dealing with rhythm. It has a positive vibration, it's dealing with love. I always talk about this: truth, peace, freedom, and justice. This is the higher self. Then you have the lower self is dealing with hatred, is dealing with talking about somebody behind their back, snitching. This is all dealing with the lower self, slander. You know what I'm saying? Like anytime you do something and talk about somebody outside without them being there, if you're talking about that person behind their back without them being there, you just put yourself into what's called lower karma. This is a lower type of karma, which keeps coming back at you. So every time you feed into that lower type of energy, gossiping, and like a lot of females do the gossiping or whatever, you don't realize you're creating the negative energy for yourselves. And it's not like a religion. It's not that, beloved. It's the energy. You're putting out negative energy about a person, they're not there. Or if you're plotting on a person to do something negative to them, they're not there. This is negative. You know what I'm saying? It's a disagreeable act. Now, it's, like I said, I'm not religious, but I know that the universe has already a built-in system of giving people back what they put out. So you're doing your own self a disservice when you operate off of the lower self. And when you operate off the lower self, let me bring balance to it, you're finding yourself in that. People that operate off the lower self, that deal in low magic and dark magic, that try to trick people up, that's all lower self type of stuff. That puts dark spells on people and like blockages on people so they can't find love and stuff. That's all doing in the lower self. And people that do that, they're solving their lessons, their own lessons too. They're just finding and solving their lessons in the darkness. So you can solve your lessons in the light or in the dark. So they're choosing to be dark lords or dark beings to solve their karma that way. So I don't judge them. They're doing their job. So those people that are solving their karma in the light, you have to do your job by not falling victim to those types of things and by functioning off what's called the higher self. So the higher self is dealing with virtue, being virtuous, being harmonious, being compassionate to your fellow brother and sister, dealing with universal love. This is the higher self. So you find yourself in that, you'll have to deal with more higher principles in life. So when you find yourself on a lower level, you're dealing with more lower principles. You know what I'm saying? Finding yourself on a higher level, you're dealing with the higher principles that it's hard to see. The lower beings can't get to the higher principles because they have to let go of the lower aspect to get to the higher. So it's best to find yourself in the higher aspect of yourself, which is going into different parts of yourself. Now you have what's called a higher and lower self, and your higher self is very real. When you talk about your ego, that's not you. What you think is you and yourself is not you. That's why some people say they need to find themselves. Those are spiritually intelligent people that are smart, and they know, not just smart, I hate that word, but they're intelligent and intuitive, more so intuitive, spiritually intuitive people that know that is more to them than just their physical shell. And they have to find themselves, you know what I'm saying, and on a higher level, you know what I'm saying? So a lot of times people are like, I know who I am, you know what I'm saying, and I go out to the gym every day, I work out, you know what I'm saying, I go to the club, I do my thing, I know I done found myself. Like, that's who you think you are. That's an image that probably was given to you by the Matrix, or that was sold to you, you bought into. That's not who you are. To really understand who you are, you need a modality. You need either to look in your natal chart, that'll help you to understand who you are. Now keep in mind, no modality. First, let me go into the modalities. You can help find a modality that can help you to find yourself is astrology, getting your natal chart. Great modality. I'm an astrologer. I do natal charts for those people that are interested in that. And another good tool to use is numerology. There's a lot of good numerologists out there. I'm also a numerologist myself, but I deal with a different form of numerology. I deal with Egyptian numerology. And then you have another good way of finding yourself is dealing with palm ministry. The palm, reading your palms. These are my palms, and your palms have your history on them. I believe it was Socrates, that talked about the whole blueprint of the palm is found on the hand. And he learned this from the Egyptians. Socrates did. He was a Greek philosopher. Philosophers study up under the Egyptian mystery school, and that's how they got the title as philosopher. Philosophers were basically people that were speculative when it came to studying the Egyptian mystery system. They were speculating, and they took notes and opinions. Philosophy means opinions. So these were their thoughts based off what they were learning in the mystery schools, but they didn't get initiated higher up. But Socrates was wise enough to know that the palms have history on them. And I learned about palm ministry through my Native American bloodline, actually. And I learned how to read my palms. I learned my history of who I am through my palms, my bloodline. Now, I'm going to be offering palm ministry on 13 Signs really soon. We have a method of doing it really soon. But right now, we're not offering that. But I'm going to be offering that soon. But I'm just saying, for right now, I mean, those people that went to palm readers and things like that, this is a good way of finding out who you really are, yourself, your true self. Because the Matrix can't tell you who you are. They're just selling you an image. The Matrix is rooted in commerce. It's all about money. Well, it's all about not even really money, but energy. Because money's not worth anything. You know what I'm saying? Fiat notes isn't worth anything. So they want your energy. So they're just going to sell you an image to get you to keep participating in the Matrix, but it might be a false image. It might be a false version of yourself. So to find a true version of yourself, you have to look into your palm. Got to get into the palm ministry. You got to get your natal chart done. You have to go and get an oracle card reading or something like that done. I mean, a tarot card reading. I mean, there's many ways and modalities to find yourself. It doesn't matter how you do it, and to help you to find yourself. The bottom line is that if you'll know that it's true and correct when you start going through these different modalities, because they'll always lead you back to the same answers. When I do my numerology chart, when I do my astrology chart, when I do my palm ministry, they all tell me the same thing. They literally all tell me the same thing. Like it's a different way of saying it. It's interesting because I get to see different angles and aspects, but they all arrive at the same. Who I am is the same in those modalities. But in the Matrix, they're going to tell me I'm supposed to be some actor, or I'm supposed to be some rapper, or I'm supposed to be some type of a pimp, or I'm supposed to be in jail, or I'm supposed to be working on the stock market. They want to give me an image. You feel me? They don't want you to just basically look into who you are in your natal chart and just be that. You know what I'm saying? Because that's how you're going to work your karma out. You don't work your karma out. You get more karma by playing out a role outside of the role that you're supposed to script, that you were scripted to play out. And mostly, to me, the best modality, of course, is the astrological natal chart, because it's more scientific, but a lot of times it's harder to get into and understand, but more information can be gained from the astrological modality when it comes to finding oneself. But you exist as a being on, like I said, as a higher self. You exist in more than just this reality. Like, for instance, my higher self is in Sirius. That's what my higher self is. My higher self exists in many realities, but Sirius is where my higher self is at home at. That's where my higher self is from, Sirius. So when I deal with my higher self, that's a being. Connecting with your higher self is just like connecting with any other type of being. It's an intelligent being that makes decisions and has a life outside of just you and the vehicle that you are part of. Your higher self has more responsibilities than just your shell. And people don't realize that. Now, you meet your higher self through the heart. Through the heart. That's where you meet your higher self at. And your higher self starts at the heart, up. So the heart chakra up is where the first three chakras are the lower self. Your ego. See, this is what people think they are, the lower part. Their ego. Oh, I'm a wrestler. Oh, I'm a boxer. You know what I'm saying? Oh, I'm an engineer. They think that's the ego, you know what I'm saying? Or sexuality. Oh, I'm a heterosexual. I like girls with big butts, or oh, I'm this. Like, you identify yourself. I'm not saying you're saying this out loud. I'm saying this is what you think you are in your mind internally. I'm this, I'm that. This is dealing with the lower self. So sexuality-wise, meaning people identify themselves and who they are sexually-wise. Oh, I like only men, or I like only women. You know what I'm saying? Then you have the root chakra, which is the lowest chakra level, when people can't get out of their childhood conditioning. And they can't get past what their parents told them and what they grew up as a child, what religion they were in. So they always identify with what they were being taught as a child in their root chakra level. And that's fine on that level, but when you start to find yourself, you have to keep graduating. Every time you find yourself, you're going to go through another time you have to find yourself. Because yourself is always unfolding. As you unfold, your higher self unfolds. So the highest part of you unfolds as you learn more. You begin to unfold. And then the demon part of you is learning more too, or the lower part of you. So every time you learn, which is unfolding, both selves are learning and gaining. So in finding yourself is always a process of what's called Ma'at. And I'm going to shut this video down with the principle of Ma'at. You have to deal with Ma'at. You have to be balanced. Finding yourself is really learning how you can balance your scales, the scales of Weaver, how you can balance the higher self and the lower self. That's finding yourself. That's how you do it. And finding yourself is having knowledge of all of your lower parts of your lower self, all of the different potentialities of your lower self, which is called the dark part of the tree of life, and then going into the light side, or the higher self, and knowing all of your potentialities in the light. And really, your potentialities in the light is unlimited, because when you deal in the light, you can keep transforming yourself, and there's no limit. It just keeps going, keeps transforming yourself. So if you deal in my and you deal in balance, you'll always be finding yourself. You'll always be in the process of learning more and then applying what you know, and then learning more and then applying what you know. So when you learn more, the learn more part is the finding yourself part. Then once you finally feel like you found yourself, then you apply it. But then it gets to a point once you apply it where it kind of runs out. And you're like, okay, so now what do I do? That's when you got to find yourself again, because you get bored. You're like, this isn't me anymore. And that's when people kind of go back to their lower self a lot of times when they get bored, like when boredom sets in. Like say, for instance, you meet a marriage partner. You feel like you found yourself in that partner. And then boredom sets in. You become bored. You become fatigued with the relationship. So you decide, you know what, I'm going to find something else to do for a while. I'm going to start cheating. I'm going to get bored. I'm going to do something lower self. I'm going to start lying to my partner. That's lower self. Even if you're lying to your partner, you're still lying. So that's dealing with the lower self. I'm going to lie to my partner. I'm going to basically just start doing something. I'm going to get on drugs. I'm just tired of my life, my situation, so I need to distract myself. The lower self is really just a distraction. So that's usually what people do when they get burnt out from being on the higher level for so long. They get burnt out because you have to. That's why you got to deal in my. See, me, I go back and forth. You'll hear me talking about a strip club with one video, right? And then you'll see me talking about love and consciousness in another video. And you're saying, well, that's so freaking hypocritical. But no, it's not. Beloved, I'm being real to myself because I know that that's in me. You know what I'm saying? I might not go to a strip club right now, but I'm at any given time, I might go to a strip club. You know what I'm saying? So you're not going to really ever see me side on either side. As an occultist, it's a lot of reasons why I don't do that too, actually. Not even just from, it's not like I'm doing this just because I'm on YouTube either, because even if I wasn't, I would still deal with higher self and lower self. So it's not about my image. It's not about my image. I do that because balancing my energy and working with my energy. And I don't want to basically allow my lower self to eat myself alive or to destroy me. Because your lower self, beloveds, could eat you alive. It really can. It could take over you, you know what I'm saying, and consume you to the point where you can't even deal on a higher level or whatever because you deny it. Like usually when that happens, a lot of religious people, they neglect the so-called lower part and act like it's not there, and they suppress it and they suppress it, and then it's a monster. The more you suppress it, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and you suppress it and you suppress it. Eventually it gets so big, it's an explosion takes place and the monster takes over. And then now this religious person that was so good and did everything right for people becomes a monster because they weren't dealing in balance and in my eye. And now they're just greedy, they're taking, they're back in the streets, they're back on drugs, they're doing everything they were doing in the lower self. But the trick is to deal in my eye and to be balanced. And even in magic, you want to be balanced, because in magic, it's a principle of, even in the sense of doing something for like exposing yourself to something and then basically having the will to beat it. Like exposing yourself to something that could be potentially addictive and then having the will to go without it after it and to detach without it. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people don't understand that high principle. And I'm not going to go into too much of that here publicly, but I'm working on a private setting for the videos. But a lot of people, they don't realize that building up will and discipline is key in magic. So you might have to expose yourself to something for a point so that you can build up your will, so that when you let go of that thing, it becomes more about, it becomes more about when you let go of that thing, do you have the will and the discipline to be able to detach when it's time to detach? So can you expose yourself to it? Say for instance, if it was a drug or something, can you expose yourself to it and then can you let go? Now I know that sounds very experimentative and people are like, that's insane, why would I do something like that? But in magic, remember, you're manipulating things. So magic is crazy. That's where the term crazy comes from, to conjure up stuff. Like, so in magic, you're conjuring up a lot of stuff, you're doing a lot of stuff that seems crazy, but as long as you get that effect, you're trying to get a certain effect. So in magic, you might expose yourself to something and then detach from it to build a will, so that when you go back into a ritual, you have more chi. The more will you have, the more chi you have, the more energy that you have. So that's when you get into, like, this is really key when you get into sexual rituals, being able to partake in a sexual ritual for males now, without ejaculating and getting built up to that point and being able to let go. All males know how it feels when you get built up to that point of orgasm, and then can you just be like, all right, I'm good, and detach, and do that as a ritual. A lot of yogis do that. After that, they'll detach, and then they'll breathe and take that chi and raise it up. You know what I'm saying? They'll keep raising it up through breathing, through proper breath, and they let that energy, that Kundalini energy, cycle around, and they can heal themselves with that type of energy. So they're exposing themselves to something and then detaching from it to build up will so that they can heal. So that's an example of it, so people won't think I'm just up here making up stuff. You expose yourself to a pleasure or desire for a desired magical effect, because magic is when you want to manipulate reality, or what you call reality, or the element, so that you can get the effect that you want. So that's the way to do it or whatever. And to really truly get into exploring your higher self, you're going to eventually find out that we're all magicians once you really find out who you are. You're a magician, you're an artist, you're intellect, you're everything. You're your own guru, you're your own leader, you're a leader, you're everything. You know what I'm saying? You're a writer, you are your own guru. You should worship yourself. So eventually, in finding yourself, in the sum total of it, you should find out that you are the ultimate supreme being in your life, and you control everything. So once you find that out, that's the highest level. You can't get, that's everybody's mission and path. That's everybody's sole purpose, is to be a supreme being and the guide and the master over their life. And you can do whatever you want to do. So that's who you are. Do whatever you want to do. So I hope that definitely helped you. As long as it's in love. Let me bring balance to that. You do what you want to do as long as it's in love. So I thank you guys for listening. I hope that helped you. I thank you guys for watching. And until we meet again, I'll leave you in peace.